What's up, guys? This is the Gospel According to Mark with a C. He is I, and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. Thank you for joining me once again, my friends. And as always, right off the top, I invite you guys to like, to share, to subscribe. When you subscribe, please hit the notification bell so you get all notices when I drop these videos. And also, I thank you in advance if you want to take advantage of the Super Thanks feature that is on all videos that I drop on this channel. It allows you to contribute to the channel if you like what I'm doing. It lights up your comment in the comment section, and I see it and I respond to every super thanks comment that I see. All right, guys, so let me get into the topic of this video, guys, because here we have another teachable moment. And you guys know that I love my teachable moments up in here. And what we're dealing with here is fan film SpiderMan Lotus. Okay, now it's interesting here. I want to actually make commentary about this because one of the things that we talk about so much within the fandom is, number one, supporting independent creators, you know, because a lot of us are disheartened by what's going on in the mainstream. So yes, you want to encourage independent creators, you know, financially, you want to encourage them, you know, spiritually, you know, emotionally, you know, sometimes physically, depending on what she looks like. But no, we want to encourage independent creators. And also, we talk about how a lot of fan projects have a lot more passion in them than the ones that you do find in the mainstream, because a lot of us who are inspired to do these things tend to be more knowledgeable, you know, with the history and the, you know, the IPs, and we grew up with them a lot of times. So you sense that passion more with the independent fan films than you do in the mainstream all too often. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's very rare. So we have this one here, SpiderMan Lotus, and it's been getting a good amount of buzz. As a matter of fact, the director of Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, Jon Watts himself has been watching this with interest, and he has commented that it looks really good. So I remember probably a few months ago, maybe even last year, I saw one of the initial trailers, and I thought it looked interesting. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it looked a little rough around the edges when I saw it at the time, but for a fan film, it did look very superior and it did look interesting, okay? So now, unfortunately, we have a little bit of controversy because the star of this fan film, as well as the director, are being called out for, let's just say, insensitive tweets or posts on social media that they've done in the past. You know, one of these situations where the internet will never forget. The internet is forever, and the internet wins every time. So let's get into this article here, guys, and I want to share it with you along with the warning. So this is on We Got This Covered, and it says, headline, SpiderMan Lotus fan film gains unwanted notoriety after racist social media posts are exposed. Oh boy. Dun, 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 dun. SpiderMan Lotus has been picking up a lot of attention over the last few months, directed by newcomer Gavin J. Knope. This trailer shows Spidey at his lowest as he struggles to deal with the death of Gwen Stacy. To mournful piano music, we see Spidey paying tribute at her grave and wondering whether to hang up his costume for good. Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home director Jon Watts said it looks great, and expectations were high for its release later this year. Unfortunately, Lotus is now blowing up social media for less happy reasons after Spider-Man/Peter Parker actor Warden Wayne's racist comments on social media were exposed. And they give you some of his so-called racist, I guess it would be posts on social media. All right, so some of them say here, I mean, in other words, it's just generous use of the N-word, all right? But what's interesting to me is that is the N-word with the version of the N-word is N-I-G-G-A-S, okay? And he does this a lot. And while I don't accept either one of these personally, I don't like to use them, you know, it's something that unfortunately has made its way into our pop culture. So when you're a kid, and this is something I was actually alluding to in my previous video, where when you get, not to be one of those people who blame hip hop for everything. I grew up with hip hop, I love hip hop, but when you grow up in a culture and you're a certain age, and you do have access to this particular form of entertainment, like the whole scene of hip hop, where there's a generous usage of that, there is going to be that influence. And that influence does not always recognize race, especially when you're a certain age. I've heard white kids use this around black kids like it's nothing. And those black kids, it is nothing to them. It's just slang to them. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's not right, but it is a fact of life. So you would also have to consider the age of this person at the time when he was doing these things. All right. Like I said, not to excuse it, okay? Not to justify it. A slur is a slur. That's why I choose not to use it, but I have chosen not to use it based upon my experience in life. Obviously, I'm no young boy, you know what I'm saying? But back when I was young, I did and said a lot of shit that I wouldn't do today. So there has to be a growth curve, I would think, right? That's just me thinking out loud. So anyway, Warden Wayne actually went on to apologize. And I'm going to read his apology to you guys so you can see where the kid is coming from, okay? So it says here, it starts off by saying, "Hello, everyone. I've decided to come out in regards to certain things from my past. I've always thought it was better to be above reproach and to come forward honestly about mistakes I made when I was younger. This is very hard to say, and I feel gross, but I'm coming clean. Years ago, when I was in high school, I used to say terrible things. I used offensive language, often homophobic or racially insensitive, casually or in jokes. I am sorry and I'm ashamed. I was raised in a homeschool conservative environment in a small town in Arkansas where I had to sneak around on other iPads and computers to use social media. My family has always been associated with groups such as the Duggars. Oh, damn, you know, those degenerates. Shit, that just explains it all right there. You know, if you were influenced by the Duggars, you're pretty fucked up. You gotta be careful, you know, about how you go about life if this is one of your influences. And that's a warning to everybody out there. If you even watch that show, you're unclean. And those values were subsequently pushed onto me. I didn't get my own cell phone till I was 18. I was in a bubble where I wasn't aware of how serious it was for me to say these things or these words. My ideas of right and wrong were skewed. My friend group at the time encouraged and perpetuated these habits. All of it became quickly a part of my vocabulary because of the lifestyles around me. And I didn't want to be excluded. And I'm embarrassed to say so. I had convinced myself I wasn't wrong, or it wasn't wrong of me to say, because of the justification I was consistently, I was consistently persuaded to believe. All right, guys. So anyway, because this is like really small, and I was never held accountable for it. But anyway, let's just scroll down to the end. He says, but regardless of any of this, I should have known better. And I spend every day wishing I hadn't been a terrible person when I was younger. But I can't change the past. All I can do is take responsibility and own up to my incredible shortcomings and continue to trying to be a better person. I hope all of you can forgive me. I'm sorry, he says. All right, so that was his statement, you know, for what it's worth. And like I said, it's pretty much consistent with what I was saying. You know, when you're younger, you are pretty much the product of your influences and all that's around you. It's only when you get to be older that you really have accountability for the things that you do and the things that you say. And, you know, so anyway, it says here, but that's not all. As director Gavin Knope apparently also can't resist dropping slurs. Now, this would be the director of this fan film. Okay, so he was also on social media, and he was also using the N-I-G-G-A word as well as the R word. You know, so he's talking about who is I think you can guess what the R word is, right? So both of them have come under fire for this. Okay, so it goes on to say, and of course, it's worth pointing out, these aren't recent. Though 2017 isn't exactly the distant past. Reaction on social media has been pretty much what you'd expect. So of course you have social media and they're going off and they're trying to roast these guys. They're trying to cancel these guys and everything. Now look, guys, for my part, right, like I said, there is no defense of ugly, racist, insensitive slurs. All right, we all have to try to be better than this. Like I said, especially when you're coming from a point of view where you're putting out fan stuff. If you're going to be a fan flick person and you're trying to offer an alternative, especially to what the craziness is that's going on in mainstream, it's weird because they're on a totally different extreme in mainstream where all of the virtue signaling and all of the false flagging and, you know, political stuff that they're doing, they're on that extreme. But you don't want to be on the other extreme where you're acting like you don't have any sense, because you're almost justifying their existence, you know, because their whole existence is they have to do all of this virtue signaling to try to combat the toxic fandom. So if you're in a fan flick capacity and you're dropping racial slurs, well then, like I said, you're practically justifying their existence. So the challenge has to be on those of us who are in the fandom who might have these aspirations of doing fan flicks or something even more than that, to watch your attitude, watch the way that you're presenting yourself, especially on social media, the way that you're growing up, you know, and everything. It's a crazy world, man. It's a crazy world where nothing makes sense. There's a lot of hypocrisy out here. Like I said, if you're dealing in a culture where they're generously dropping the N-word all over the place, but you can still be roasted and condemned for dropping the N-word, well, that doesn't always make too much sense. And I can tell you one thing also. To me, racism and real racism is not necessarily what you say as much as what you do. Now, occasionally what you say can have an effect and an outcome on the things that you do or what others do if you're an influencer. So it is tricky, all right? But the things that people say, especially the things that people think, is something I'm not concerned with, because you really can't control that. You know what I mean? It's just like a little kid. A little kid, you know, he can cuss, he can do all of these things, he can just fire off whatever he wants. He's a little kid and he hasn't learned self-control, right? But when you get to be a certain age, self-control will define you as an adult. So that's where the wrong comes in for me, right? When you take your racist attitudes and you put it into practice. Now, as far as I know, this actor and this director, I don't see any examples of things that they're doing, especially at present, that is racist. I don't see it in what is that they're trying to express, you know, their artwork, you know, whatever it is that they're trying to put on screen. It's different if you have racist attitudes and it comes forth in your product. You know, it comes forth in your speech, it comes forth in your actions, you know, more so than ever than anything else. You know, that's, to me, that's a little bit different, you know, but the challenge is on all of us, man, to be better people. We all fall short in that way, you know, so I would be a hypocrite, and I think that other people would be too if you didn't allow for that sometimes. It can't always be a situation where you're looking for a smoking gun, and as soon as you see something, especially on the internet, you're like, ha ha, I gotcha. He was using the N-word, he was using the R-word, he was using the B-word, you know, all that stuff, you know, it's different. Once again, if what you're doing, and I keep going back to this because I know people will misunderstand that I'm trying to justify what they did or what they said, but I'm really not. What I'm trying to do is get us to move forward, you know, to the point where we can understand what real racism is, because if you just point it out all over the place, it really does start to lose power. You know, and I think that's what we're doing a lot of today. It's like we're pointing at this is racist, that's racist, that's racist, and it really does start to lose a lot of the weight that it used to have. And I was raised not to do that. I was raised not to, you know, point to this is racist and, you know, all over the place, because it's almost like crying wolf. You have to be very precise with what really is an offense. Otherwise, it loses a lot of power and you lose a lot of the ability to be able to gain justice. You know, so this is what we have going on here for your consideration. You know, there are different levels of offense. Now, some people are offended by this to the point where they'll be put off from this project. I totally get that. I totally understand. The only thing I'm here for is to affect some type of conversation so that we might get to a better place of understanding, because best believe this is not the last time or the first time that this is going to happen, you know? So we really need to understand this. We need to challenge each other. We need to understand each other more. If you go back into my social media history, as much as I like to talk shit, you're going to find some stuff that I said that doesn't sound so good, you know? But at the time, obviously, that's how I felt, you know. I'm a little bit older now. You know, I get every day I like to learn something. So hopefully, you know, my understanding and this person's understanding that we're talking about here, your understanding, it is challenged every single day. So let's help each other to achieve that level of consciousness where we can be just a little bit more self-aware. All right, guys, so that's all I have to say. Those are my thoughts concerning this. You can get in the comment section and let me know how you feel about this. If you've even heard about this SpiderMan Lotus project, will it keep you away from this, knowing that the star and director in their past it ain't that distant a past, but you know, when you look at the apology, is this something that's acceptable to you? Will it keep you away from the product? Let me know in the comment section. As always, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe. Thank you for listening, guys. I'll catch you on the next one. This is The Gospel According to Mark with a C. Rock on.